Our next guest was elected to the United States Senate in 1984, representing the great state of Kentucky. Senator Mitch McConnell, the current Senate Republican leader, has long been a friend of veterans and a strong supporter of our nation's service members and military. More importantly, he has a record to prove. For example, in March, Senator McConnell wrote a letter to Defense Secretary Hagel urging him to reconsider the placement of the Distinguished Warfare Medal, awarded to those who using advanced technology in warfare, but who do so largely out of harm's way. Senator McConnell, along with VFW and several other veterans organizations, wanted to ensure the new medal did not occupy a position of precedence above the Bronze Star and Purple Heart. Believe me, it could weaken the morale and diminish the recognition given to our nation's brave service members. He followed that up by sponsoring legislation which would require the Bronze Star and Purple Heart to occupy positions of precedence above the Distinguished Warfare Medal. Of course, we all know the Distinguished Warfare Medal has since been canceled, thanks in part to Senator McConnell for his efforts. He also reported and introduced a resolution in support of our missing service members. The resolution expresses the sense of the Senate that no member of the armed forces who is missing in action or captured should be left behind. This reinforces America's commitment to leave no man or woman unaccounted for in any military action, something the VFW has tirelessly supported. Veterans are fortunate to have such an ally in the Senate. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming United States Senator Mitch McConnell.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, John, for that kind introduction. It's an honor to address this assembly of America's veterans of foreign wars. Welcome to Louisville, Kentucky. In a little while, you'll also be hearing from my good friend and colleague from Kentucky, Senator Rand Paul. We're both happy to welcome you to the Bluegrass State and are pleased Kentucky is hosting your 114th National Convention. You represent nearly 2 million members of the VFW and its auxiliary, men and women who promote patriotism, honor military service, and care for our veterans and their families. I want to particularly thank my good friend, VFW Inspector General Kalin of Litchfield, Kentucky. And Carl's right over here. Thank you, Carl. He is the first Kentuckian to become Inspector General, and he's been tirelessly working on behalf of veterans ever since he first joined VFW Post 1170 in Middletown, Kentucky in 1969. It's good to see you always, Carl. In addition to Carl and Commander-in-Chief John Hamilton, I also want to thank my good friends Brian Duffy and John Ranson, as well as Ladies Auxiliary National President Leanne Limley, and the national officers and members of the VFW and Ladies Auxiliary. It's an honor to share the hall with all of you today. I can think of no better place for the VFW to meet than right here in Kentucky. The people of this state are no strangers to the hardship and the heroism entwined with military service. We are home to 339,000 veterans and 58,000 active duty and civilian employees of the armed forces in posts including Fort Campbell, Fort Knox, and the Bluegrass Army Depot, as well as members of the reserves and the National Guard. Kentucky ranks 9th of all 50 states in the number of active duty military personnel stationed within its borders. I think it's clear that this Commonwealth has a great understanding and empathy for the men and women who have worn the uniform. For those of you who have traveled far, I hope you'll find your stay with us to be an enjoyable one. Now let me turn to what I know is an important topic for many of you. the current state of affairs in Washington. Look, I've got to say, as honored as I am to be selected by my fellow Kentuckians to serve in the nation's capital, it's a real relief to be back in Louisville. Only in Washington can people become lost in thought, because for them, it's such unusual territory. As you already know, overspending by the federal government has reached never-before-seen heights. Deficits are out of control, and the debt has nearly reached $17 trillion. Unlike some of my friends in the Senate on the other side of the aisle, I believe the root of this problem is not that Americans are taxed too little, but that the government spends too much. Look, the American people know that spending must be reined in, and both Democrats and Republicans in Congress agree when both parties voted to cut government by $2.1 trillion over the next 10 years. We should not go back on this agreement now or cut even a penny less than we promised. Any Kentuckian will tell you it's completely ridiculous to think Washington can't find a way to cut 2 to 3% of the federal budget at a time when we're nearly $17 trillion in debt. I meet Kentuckians who had to figure out how to make ends meet with a little bit less in their paychecks all too often, and I'm sure many of you have had to do so as well. Are we saying Washington can't do the same? Of course, that's absurd. This shift is about reshaping the government's priorities. And let me say, however, that even in a time when the government clearly must tighten its belt, I believe support for America's veterans must always remain a top priority. Every American who served made a solemn promise to this country. The least your government can do is uphold its promise to you in return. We must never break faith with the American veteran. I'm proud of my record of support for veterans and the military, but advocacy for veterans is a team effort, and I've been very fortunate to be able to team up with the VFW on a number of issues over the years, whether it is supporting veterans' education or veterans' health care. Both the National and the Kentucky VFW have been extremely helpful, keeping me abreast of developments that affect our veterans. Nor has my work with the VFW been limited to the VA. When the Department of Defense suggested that a new military decoration, the Distinguished Warfare Medal, should take precedence over the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart, my friends at the State VFW, including Carl, Brian, and John, quickly brought the matter to my attention. Ray Kelly of the VFW National Office did the same. I co-sponsored legislation to ensure the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart would retain their appropriate positions and not be shoved below the Distinguished Warfare Medal. I also expressed this belief by letter to Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, and as you know, the Defense Department actually reconsidered and decided not to reduce the positions or precedence enjoyed by the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. I'm glad they did, and let me just take this opportunity to say to the Bronze Star and Purple Heart recipients assembled out here today, thank you for your service. And on the local level, Carl and other Kentucky veterans urged that the Louisville Veterans Hospital be named after Robley Rex, a service member from the World War I era who was well known for his prolific service in support of his fellow veterans. I was happy to get enacted legislation that did just that. And for those of you who around the country had no opportunity to know Mr. Rex, he was incredible, lived to be over 100 years old, and went to help veterans every single day after he retired. And of course, he was retired for a very, very long time. Another issue the VFW and I worked on together is the backlog of VA disability claims. Let me tell you, the size of this problem is a national disgrace. At the beginning of 2009, there were 390,000 claims filed by veterans and awaiting action way, way too many. Today, however, the backlog is almost doubled in number. This is totally unacceptable. In the past 4 years, the number of claims pending for over a year has grown by over 2,000%. This, despite many promises from the Obama administration to address the issue, despite attempts to modernize the VA's claim system, excuse me, and despite a 40% increase in VA's budget. In fact, 5 years ago, I supported funding to the VA that was over $750 million more than the VA itself requested, specifically to address this unacceptable backlog. Yet today, the average waiting time for a veteran who's filed a claim is nearly a year. And more than 750,000 veterans are literally stuck in this backlog. 750,000. Just to put that in perspective, that's as many people as live in the entire metropolitan Louisville area. For this reason, I personally advocated and will continue to advocate the President himself to take a direct action and involvement to end the VA backlog. An issue this important demands attention from the very top, at the top. Veterans ought to be able to count on their government, and they ought to be able to count on their commander-in-chief. On another matter, I think we can all agree that it's of the utmost importance that our government do all we can to ensure the safe return of every service member who is currently believed to be of POW or MIA status. Take the specific case of Sergeant Bergdahl, captured in Operation Enduring Freedom and currently held, we know, in enemy hands. On behalf of Kentucky veterans, I've expressed my deep concern to the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense about the safe recovery of Sergeant Bergdahl. And I've supported Senate legislation reinforcing it is unacceptable to abandon the search efforts for any member of the armed forces who is missing or captured in the line of duty. We must remember the words of the soldier's creed and the warrior ethos, I will never leave a fallen comrade. This past June the 6th, as I'm sure you know, was the 69th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. On that date in 1944, 160,000 Allied troops landed along a 50-mile stretch of heavily fortified French coastland in a surprise attack against the forces of Nazi Germany. The cost of the Normandy invasion were high indeed. More than 9,000 Allied soldiers were killed or wounded that day. But it was the beginning of the successful conclusion of the war. On the 69th anniversary of D-Day, I met with a distinguished group of Kentucky World War II veterans. They were able to make the trip thanks to an admirable program that serves veterans called Honor Flight. My good friend Brian Duffy is the leader of Honor Flight's Bluegrass chapter, which has brought over 2,000 veterans to the nation's capital to see the World War II memorial that celebrates their service. The World War II Memorial is more than just granite and steel. For many Americans, it's a memorial for the service of long-lost friends and family members. It was for these heroes, and it is for my family as well, because my father served in World War II. He fought in the European theater. One of the most prized possessions is the flag which draped his coffin in his honor of service. It is a privilege that June the 6th, we had an opportunity to shake hands with my father's contemporaries. It was a truly meaningful experience. And to hear them and to have an opportunity to thank them for their service. I remember in particular a veteran from Owensboro who said he was on he was on Utah Beach that day. I said, "You realize it was 69 years ago this very day?" He said, "Yeah, it was a tough day. I lost a lot of friends." And it's wonderful that we've had the opportunity through Honor Flight to bring these living World War II heroes to Washington to see the memorial finally built to honor their service. As World War II recedes further into the past, sadly, we're losing more and more of these living legends. The passage of time makes it all the more important that we thank these heroes for their service before it's too late. In fact, it's never too early to say thank you to a veteran. As such, I want to thank you all for your service. Thank you to your families for bearing the burdens of absence when your country needed you. And thank you for answering the call to service on behalf of your community, your country, and the cause of freedom around the world. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity to be here this morning. Thank you. Thank you.